Does anyone wish to speak to any of those items? Seeing none, we'll move along to the docket approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilmember DeCamp. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Ellinger. We have a couple of or three zone changes. Items 5 and 6 under the ordinances involve a couple of matters that need to be heard by May 28th if we wish to hold a hearing. Is there a motion one way or the other?
Mayor,
Councilmember James.
I move to place on the docket without a hearing ordinance number 5.
Okay. Did I hear a second? I have a second by Councilmember Ellinger. The motion is to amend the docket so as to not have a public hearing on item number 5. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Others? Councilmember Blues.
I move to place item number 6 on the docket without a public hearing.
Do I hear? I have a second by Councilmember Gordon. Any discussion? Those in favor of putting item 6 on the docket without a hearing and amending the docket to that effect, please let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Councilmember Gordon.
Yes, I move to put number 7 on the docket without a public hearing.
I know I didn't get one here.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember DeCamp has seconded Councilmember Gordon's motion to amend the docket by putting item 7 on without a hearing. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I think we need the same for number 8, Mayor.
So
Make a motion that we put number 8 on without a public hearing.
Second.
have a second by Councilmember Ellinger to Councilmember DeCamp's motion to put item 8 on the docket without a hearing. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. I believe that's all the ones that need attention. Any other motions with regard to the docket? If not, we're ready to vote on the docket as amended. Those in favor of approving the docket as amended, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're down now to the summary of the March 11th work session. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Councilmember Gordon has moved and Councilmember Blues has seconded that the work session summary for March 11 be approved. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. And that takes us down to budget amendments.
Move approval, Mayor.
Is there a second? Councilmember Lane has seconded Councilmember Gordon's motion to approve the budget amendments. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. That brings us down to the items of new business. Any discussion or a motion?
Second.
Have a motion from Councilmember Beard and a second by Councilmember Gordon to approve the items of new business. Any discussion? Councilmember Blevins.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to discuss item, sorry, let me get my glasses on here, Q. Commissioner Coe, would you come up and discuss item Q with us, please? While she's coming, council members, it's my understanding we have to have a resolution authorizing reimbursement to go in conjunction with item Q. So Commissioner Coe is going to explain that, and then I'm going to make a motion to make this happen.
Thank you. This is our opportunity to move forward with our STARS implementation. When I last gave you an update, I told you we were where we were at the time with financials and that we were looking toward Adding to the financials suite projects and cash management, you approved that amendment of the contract a few weeks ago. Now what you have before you is a new contract with Metaformers to implement the human resources side of this suite of products. We've built in several decision points along the way just to make sure that we have the capacity to do everything that needs to be done to make this successful. So while I'm asking for the contract to be approved in the amount of $4.3 million, there are decision points that could make us spend considerably less than that. But we need to get into the middle of this, see where we are in terms of our data, and see what we need to do. We really must move forward with this implementation. We have the software. We've been paying for it. We will continue to pay for it. Now we need to learn to use it and have our data in the system. Most of you know we're running payroll off the mainframe. We're trying to get out of the mainframe business. It's an old application that just is not very friendly to some of the kinds of things that we'd like to do with payroll in this day and time. So that's the Metaformers contract. The resolution that Councilmember Blevins is bringing forward is a reimbursement resolution to sell bonds for $5.5 million to complete the project. And this will complete everything that we know that we want to do with the software.
It's my understanding that we have to do the reimbursement resolution in conjunction with the approval of the contract. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, I want to make sure you get what I'm trying to do here. This is to go in conjunction with item Q, although the phrasing is I move to place on the docket. So I want to make sure we're not talking about
It's two
this
separate.
Thursday's docket.
Yeah,
We're talking about the new business today. So I move to place on the docket a resolution authorizing the reimbursement from subsequent borrowings of temporary advances made for capital expenditures for implementation of Phase 2 of the PeopleSoft software, STARS expansion, in the sum of $5.5 million. So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and second to approve the resolution. Councilmember, to put on the docket the resolution Councilmember Blevins just brought forward. Councilmember James.
Should the motion then be amended to state to put on for a new business item as opposed to put on the docket for reference sake?
Probably. Logan, how do you want this done so that it's on the new business in conjunction with the item Q? The phrasing I've been given is docket, and that's probably not appropriate.
Let me take a look at the motion.
What's 5 million for? I was fooling with these things. What's the 5 million for? I didn't know. Oh, yeah, yeah.
This item Q. For new business. This needs to be part of new business also. Is that what this does?
Yes,
So it's okay.
I think that's fine.
Just leave it as is, the intent. You okay with that, Councilmember James?
Not really, because it doesn't sound right. It sounds like it should be for a new business item.
I
not for
accept the
docket.
friendly amendment from Councilmember James. If my second will also take it, and we'll go with it's added to new business.
Any further discussion?
Nothing, it's the same thing.
Then those in favor of adding the new business item outlined by Councilmember Blevins, let it be known by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, I have a question about two items. The first one is item C. This is to accept for the Department for the Metropolitan Medical Response System. And it's listed for Paula King and Commissioner Bennett. And my question, I'm curious to what the status of the Metropolitan Medical Response System is at the present time. I'm all for it. I think we need such a plan. But I see that we also have under reappropriations, which is a part of the docket, several other referrals to this particular activity for contractual services, for coordinator of fringe benefits, coordinator of other benefits, and equipment less than $5,000. So I have the privilege of serving on the executive committee of the Lexington Medical Society, and the physicians in our community are wondering where all this stands. And I hope the citizens do too.
Well, the MMRS system is in place. As a matter of fact, we had an exercise last week, I think it was, to test some of the readiness. MMRS goes back several years, and part of what you were referring to is a reappropriation of an old grant that we got from the federal government. I think it was about in probably 04. And unlike most grants, the money from that got deposited into the general fund, so that every year without reappropriations it would just lapse and go to other purposes. If we don't spend it, we have to give it back to the federal government anyway. So that's the purpose for the reappropriation on that. As to the MMRS system itself, if you'd like, I can get Pat Duggar to come and just give you a full report on the entire program. She's a whole lot better equipped to do that than I am today, but I'd be glad to do that if you like at a future, work session or committee meeting.
If she can contact me, I would be appreciated, because I can carry that message on to the medical society who are interested in it. I just didn't know if the system was alive and well.
It is alive and well, with a big participation from the health department too. So, health department as well as their. I said it is alive and well with a lot of participation from the health department as well as the medical, the hospitals around the community. So, I'll get Pat to give you a call and give you a full update on it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And my other question, Mr. Mayor, relates to item E, which is from the Division of Engineering, I take it. And it says we're going to increase by $39.52.23 to adjust the contract quantities to reflect actual works completed for the 7th Street at Old Railroad Improvements Project. The original contract was for $238,000. I'm just not familiar with this project, and I wanted to be updated on it.
Commissioner Kelly or someone from engineering? Okay, Bob.
On 7th Street, just before reaching the bridge that goes over the railroad tracks, there was an old spur line that went into the Whitey's material yard, and this project took out that spur line and regraded the street, so that because it was a considerable bump there.
So this Old Railroad Improvements Project is projects that relate to abandoned railroads, is that it? Or what's an old railroad? I was just curious about the nomenclature here.
It was just an old railroad spur line that served basically one property. It had been abandoned, and everything outside of the public right-of-way had been sold off to private individuals. So we did our work within the public right-of-way and just eliminated the old at-grade crossing.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all? All right. I have been noticing several changes in my list, and right now I've got Councilmember McCord and Councilmember Ellinger, so if anybody else wishes to speak, I don't have you on the list right now, but we'll go ahead. Councilmember McCord.
Okay. The question's on letter R. I think Mr. Askew is the person listed there, although it's general services. I believe Commissioner Cole isn't here. So I don't know if you'll be able to answer these questions or not, but we'll take a try.
in here someplace.
Can you just give me a brief explanation? As it appears in R here that we are creating a position that should have been created a while ago. Is that what's going on here?
That's correct.
And do we know what this position is for exactly?
I do not. I know that it was supposed to be in the original ordinance, and it was inadvertently omitted.
Okay. Commissioner Cole, you may.
Yes, this is a position that's being created to be in charge of the community school, the partnership that's been formed between LFUCG and Fayette County Schools for the school that's under construction right now.
So how are we paying for that position?
That position was, it was reclassed from a vacancy that was in parks that we'd been holding on till the time was appropriate to fill this position.
And is it, we're just now doing it because the community school is just now coming online? Is that, we couldn't have done this back in January because it wasn't there? What, exactly?
We were trying to time it to go along when the principal was hired, and the principal's now been hired, so we wanted to go forward with the position so that we align all the resources properly.
Now, is this a civil service position, or will this person be classified civil service?
It is a civil service position.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Ellinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to go back to Q if we could, and I was on there and got taken off, I guess. And Commissioner Cole, if you could. Cole. I guess if you could you clarify, because I'm a little confused of what we've done with the new motion, and I know we set money aside a few years ago for STARS. Have we spent all that money? Because I know we were kind of going down. So where are we right now with that?
Most, if not all of that money is obligated. There might be a few $1,000s left, but when you approved the amendment of the last amendment to the Metaformers contract, that took the rest of the original money that we had for the project. So,
and how much was that originally?
$10.8 million, I believe. The bond issue was, I think the bond issue was $10 million, and then there was some general fund cash put into it originally. So it was originally 10.8.
So now we're putting another 5.5 into it?
Yes, sir.
So that's a big increase from what we initially thought when we did this.
Yes, sir.
When we went through all this way back when and took all these bids, and we've actually had an increase of 60% about there, it looks like.
That's right. I don't know if you get Governing Magazine, but it was pretty timely this past month. There were a series of articles in there about failed ERP implementations. 60% of these projects fail. I mean, people pour a lot of money into them and never get anything out. Even though we have had a number of problems, we are going to be a successful implementation. Florida spent $90 million on theirs, and it failed. So while I understand the concern about the additional money, I feel like we are just very fortunate right now to have a system that's up and running, and we have good software.
How is this going to affect our bond rating, and where's this money going to come from?
It will be part of the 09 bond package that we'll be bringing forward to you in the 09 budget. So the bonds, the debt service won't be due until 2010. So there's no cash in the reimbursement resolution and subsequent bond issue.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't have anyone else on my list right now, so if I should, just raise your hand. Seeing none, I think we're ready to proceed to vote on the items of new business. Those in favor of approving the items of new business, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're now ready for the Intergovernmental Committee report. Councilmember James.
Thank you, Mayor. Intergovernmental Committee met on March the 11th. We had two items of business. One was the CSEA board leave for association business, and the other was the employee compensation update. There was a motion that came forward from both of those topics. We heard from the law department and received a memo related to, or reviewed a memo related to the law department's interpretation of the existing policy. Based on that presentation, there was a motion made by Councilmember Blues to encourage CSEA to use flex time provision and council not pursue, repeat that. A motion made by Councilmember Blues to encourage CSEA to use the flex time provision and the council not pursue CSEA's request to draft an ordinance formalizing 4 hours per month of work time to conduct the association's business, and that the cost of LFUCG's facilities would be waived for CSEA. Seconded by Councilmember Blevins, passed with 1 nay. I'd like to bring that motion forward, please.
I think the purpose of the motion is to approve that recommendation from the Intergovernmental Committee. Is that?
Yes, please.
All right. Is there a second? Second. I have a second by Councilmember DeCamp. Any discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Let's
Can we?
vote
Yes,
by
please.
electronic ballot, please. Those in favor, please vote aye electronically. Those opposed, vote nay.
It's in her committee.
Appears as though the motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. The other motion deals with the employee compensation update. We heard from Wally Barker, who's the manager of compensation in Human Resources, and he went over a project plan for market pricing compensation, the market pricing compensation program. The motion that came forward from that was based on report out dates, and I'd like to bring forward the motion made by Councilmember Blevins at that time to accept Mr. Barker's proposal of dates for future presentations in June of 2008, September 2008, December 2008, February 2009, and May 2009 on this issue. That was seconded by Councilmember Blues and passed without dissent. So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you, Councilmember Beard. Motion on the floor is to approve the recommendation from the Intergovernmental Committee that Mr. Barker make future presentations over the course of the next 18 months or so. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all for Intergov. Oh, I guess I will add that we did select a vice chair, and that is Councilmember DeCamp. Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you. Councilmember Gorton.
Yes, I just had a comment and a change in the summary of Intergovernmental on page 36 of our packet. Normally, the summaries list council members who are present who are not part of the committee, which I was. I'm not part of that committee, but I was present, so I'd like for you to go ahead and add that Councilmember Gorton was also in attendance. Thank you.
If there's no objection, we'll proceed to make that change. We're now ready for council reports. I still have Councilmember Gorton.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one motion. Council members should have received in their boxes a few days ago the capital list, and so I move to place on the docket the capital improvement expenditure for the Chennault Road Neighborhood Association project.
Have a motion and a second to approve the expenditure for the Chennault Road project. Any discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, vote nay. Motion carries. Councilmember Blevins.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the Neighborhood Development Fund list for today, please.
I have a motion by Councilmember Blevins and a second by Councilmember Stevens to approve the NDF. Those in any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Councilmember Blues.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight at 7 p.m., the Western Suburb Neighborhood Association Board will meet, and that's going to be at 645 West Short Street. A reminder to the neighborhood representatives and others who might be interested in planning their Great American Cleanup event. The Great American Cleanup meeting will be at 7 p.m. at the Division of Water and Air Quality in the Administration Building, 301 Lyle Industrial Avenue. And if you want to receive further information on that or RSVP, that would be at 859-425-2429. Ask to speak to Tony Floyd. Monday, March 24th, 2 neighborhood association meetings. The Oakwood Neighborhood Association will meet at 7 p.m. in the Oakwood Park Community Center. And also at 7 p.m., the Marlboro-Radcliffe Neighborhood Association will hold its monthly meeting at the Community Center in Marlboro Park. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. In, I think it was January, earlier part of the year, we had discussion in the council and in the planning committee on the issue of student housing in and around the University of Kentucky especially. And the planning commission, the planning committee adopted a motion to recommend that a task force be established for the purpose of reviewing, evaluating the student housing situation conditions. And after considering this with a number of people on the council and a number of the members of the council who are especially involved in the Town Gown Commission, the following members I will appoint according to the council rules as vice mayor. The membership of this task force is sorted or comprised of, importantly, of members from the university, the administration, the neighborhoods around the university, the landlords who are affected and are involved around the university, and students. There may be some adjustments to the appointments as we go along, but at this point in time, the appointments include members of the council. Again, the reasons for these appointments are those who have been active in Town Gown, but I also want to say that any council members are welcome to attend these task force meetings. The timing of those has yet to be established, but we're going to would certainly encourage anyone who wants to be involved to please be involved. Members of the council would be council members DeCamp, Stevens, Gordon, and Gray. From the university, Joe Monroe, who is the, I believe, he's chief, isn't that right, Dr. Stevens?
Yes, he's acting chief.
Acting chief, right.
Police.
Acting chief of police at the university. Tony Franklin, associate dean, and Lisa Higgins Horde, who is vice president for university relations. Landlords, and I'm just going to give last names here. I don't have everybody's first name right now. Burton, Bryant, Hardin, Boone, and among neighbors, the neighborhood area representatives, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Moiser, Stamatiadis, Ms. Stamatiadis, and Deborah Hensley. University students, we've asked Nick Phelps, who is currently president of the University of Kentucky, student body. That's my report, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
I would like to move, I came Saturday to the streetscape presentation, which was down in our ballroom, and it was very good. We have a lot of innovative ideas about our downtown streetscape. Unfortunately, City Hall was hard to reach on Saturday because there was a run going down Main Street. It was closed, followed by a parade. So it was kind of hard to get in the place, but a number of people did find a way, and they're very interesting presentations. I've also met with the members of KKG, not the girls' sorority, but the name of a firm from Northern Kentucky who advises on streetscapes, and I would recommend or move that the item of streetscapes and their presentation be moved into the Planning Committee for presentation.
Is there a second? Have a second from Vice Mayor Gray to refer the streetscape plan to the Planning Committee. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Councilmember James.
In today's planning, one little thing, in today's Planning Committee, we had an extensive review of the status of the infill and redevelopment initiative, both by the Planning Division and by our consultants, followed by a lively exchange of information, people attending. This is not the final status of it. The consultants are working up an implementation plan, which has been rough drafted by the steering committee, and will present it to us in final form on April the 10th, following which it'll be ready for the administration and the council to do with it what they will.
Thank you. Councilmember James.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple of announcements of neighborhood meetings I want to let everybody know about. Tonight from 7 to 8, the Meadows Loudon Neighborhood Association will meet. They meet at, I just forgot the name of the church that's right there. They're meeting at their regular place. I'll have to think about that. Hold on one moment. Also, on Thursday, March the 20th, Castlewood Neighborhood Association is having their meeting, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. They have planning. That's at Grace Baptist Church. The William Wells Brown Neighborhood Association will meet at the Brenda Cowan Center, or Phyllis Wheatley, as some still call it, 6:30 to 8. Those two are both on Thursdays. On Thursday, the 20th. I also want to announce that next week at Transy is Fair Trade Week, sponsored by the Anthropology Club. And I'll just read a little excerpt here. I've dropped one of these into council members' boxes, but Fair Trade Week will promote awareness of global issues and fair trade campaign. Fair trade is a holistic approach to trade and development that aims to alter the ways in which commerce is conducted so that trade can empower the poorest of the poor. Fair trade organizations seek to create sustainable and positive change in developing and developed countries. We want to expose the students of Transy, as well as others, to local and global fair trade options and demonstrate that they can make a difference. So there's a schedule of events, and if anybody needs that information, feel free to contact me at 258-3216. I'll be happy to get you in touch with the folks that are organizing that, or email me at ajames@lfucg.com. And with mentioning that about Transy, I wanted to ask Vice Mayor if is Transy part of the Town and Gown?
Yes, it is.
Are they
that's a good
represented?
question. And on the Student Housing Task Force, there's a member, they've become very active and more active in Town and Gown recently. Transy has. And we were going to especially ask about, there's still a member within the student population for the task force that would be available, and we certainly will ask their participation in it.
But not a member of their administration or a landlord from that area. I think it would be very pivotal.
No.
To the same degree, it may be not the number, but at least representation from all those. There is student housing around that area, which would be affected by any recommendations that would come forward. So I do encourage you to.
We'll look at that, and I'll get back to you. I think there's no fixed number or limit on the number of members of the task force. We're trying to keep it some level of responsible numbers and manageable numbers to some extent. I don't want to use the word manageable, but that's a good recommendation, so we'll certainly look at it and get back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember McCord.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. In the Planning Committee meeting that we just had, it was brought up that the changes in Frankfurt to the TIF legislation are changing, or there's an attempt to change that would dramatically hinder that tool for cities to use. And it was stated that Lexington's official position is neutral on that, where Louisville and other cities have said they're vehemently against it. And I would just ask if Ned Sheehy could just bring us a report at some time, email it to us, and just let us know where we stand as a city right now. If that position is neutral, if that's our official position, I would bring forward a resolution next week to change that, to be very opposed to that. It is one of the best tools that cities have to revitalize areas and so forth. So I would ask Ned to bring that forward. Want to invite everybody in the city of Lexington, as well as those across the council, to enjoy the next few days. From Wednesday to Saturday, Lexington really does put its best foot forward in the Sweet 16 tournament. We want to welcome all 16 teams and their fans to Lexington, and it's just an awesome time to be a part of basketball and be a part of Lexington, and certainly would encourage everyone to come down for that. Thursday night from 5:15 to 6:30, the council is invited to the World Trade Center for open house reception. Governor Martha Lane Collins has invited each of us to come and meet with them from 5:15 to 6:30. And lastly, I just want to reiterate that next Tuesday, Leadership Lexington, a portion of that current class will come and present to this body about their recommendations on the recycling and Green City movement, and are prepared to bring forward a draft resolution as it relates to recycling in Lexington. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Let me raise a question just to clarify one thing, if I could. Councilmember McCord, did I understand you were interested in trying to get some feedback from Mr. Sheehy about our position on the TIF legislation?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ray, okay. Mr. Kelly may be able to shed some light on that.
Thank you, Mayor. To say that we were neutral on the TIF legislation would be a mischaracterization of our position. We worked with the bill's sponsor, Representative Webb, to address those things that were objectionable to Lexington, and have been able to get those things adjusted. There's continuing work taking place on the bill, but the things that were really objectionable to us here in Lexington have been addressed. Now, we're supportive of those additional adjustments that people are trying to get made, and have made that known as well. So that I just wanted to make sure people understood that our position has not been one of not being involved or trying to address those things that were issues for Lexington.
If you wouldn't mind then, given that explanation, if you wouldn't mind having Ned just email us, or you can email us,
Sure.
Here's where it was, and here's what we fought to keep in, and so forth, and why, and so forth. I think that's really important, and I know one size doesn't fit all across the state of Kentucky.
Right.
But I would hate to see this dismantled right when we're getting ready to start using this or have the opportunity to use it.
Absolutely, and you know, the existing legislation was just passed last year and has not been tested yet. So our position was based upon the fact that the existing legislation was a fix, if you will, to some problems that existed previous. So our position was not neutral on that legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Councilmember Crosby.
Yes, Mayor. I did not receive the pass round for Project Lifesaver, so I was wondering if I could just make a motion to amend the NDF funds and add $100 from Council District 7 to Project Lifesaver, please.
I have a motion by Councilmember Crosby, second by Councilmember Gordon. Is there any discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Does any other council member wish to make a report? Seeing none, we'll move on to the mayor's report, which was previously circulated to you. I have one change on the item dealing with the Green Space Commission. One of the two individuals was listed as John Browning. That is correct as far as it goes, but it only stopped with his middle name. His last name is Park, John Browning Park. So if you would make a note to that effect. With that one change, a motion would be in order to approve those recommendations.
Move approval.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gordon, a second by Councilmember Crosby. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Last item on the docket is public comment on issues not on the agenda. Does anyone wish to address the council on items that are not on the agenda? All right. Councilmember Blevins.
Thank you, Mayor. I move pursuant to KRS 61.810 subsection 1C to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation against the Lexington-Fayette Urban County government.
Have a motion by Councilmember Blevins and a second by Councilmember Lane to go into closed session. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll stand in recess briefly and then
got a call, a desperate plea from my old friend Paul. He said, my cousin Mildred's here from out of state. I got to fix her up with a blind date. Mildred, hope you behave. Now, Paul said Mildred here is a quiet mouse, a real shy type, hardly leaves the house. But I said, Paul, I'm going to the dance tonight. Well, bring her down and